The throne room of the Dominion stretched for nearly a mile. Giant pillars of black stone rose toward a ceiling lost in shadow. Thousands of servants moved in silence across the polished floor. At the far end, sitting upon a throne carved from the bones of conquered kings, Emperor Ed the Undying watched the holographic display floating before him. The image showed a small blue planet. Oceans covered most of its surface. Green and brown landmasses broke through the water. White clouds swirled in lazy patterns across its face. "This is the world?" the Emperor asked. His voice was dry and ancient, like wind through dead leaves. Grand Admiral Axis stepped forward and bowed low. He was tall even by standards, with gray skin and 4 arms folded behind his back in a gesture of respect. Golden medals covered his chest. Each one represented a world he had conquered. "Yes, my Emperor, the humans call it Earth. Our probes have studied them for 30 cycles." The Emperor leaned forward slightly. "Tell me about these humans." Axis waved his hand and the hologram changed. Now it showed the creatures that lived on the blue world. They were small and soft. They had only 2 arms and 2 legs. Their skin came in various shades of brown and pink. They had no claws, no armor, no natural weapons of any kind. "They are weak, my Emperor. Physically, they are among the most fragile species we have ever documented." The Admiral's mouth twisted into something like a smile. "They cannot survive their own planet's weather without artificial covering. They must cook their food or they become sick. Their young are helpless for years after birth." Laughter rippled through the throne room. The assembled generals and advisors found this very amusing. "What of their technology?" the Emperor asked. The hologram changed again. It showed primitive rockets lifting off from the planet's surface. Chemical engines burned bright orange against the sky. The spacecraft were crude things made of metal and wire. "They have barely achieved," Axis explained. "They reached their moon about 60 of their years ago, then stopped going. Their fastest ships would take thousands of years to reach the nearest star. They have not discovered faster-than-light travel. They do not even know it exists." The Emperor studied the images with cold eyes. "Their weapons." "Primitive projectile systems, my Emperor. They fire small pieces of metal at each other. Some of their weapons use chemical explosions. Their most powerful devices could perhaps destroy one of their own cities." Axis paused for effect. "They could not scratch the paint on a transport ship." More laughter filled the throne room. The Emperor raised one long finger, and silence fell instantly. "What of their society, their unity?" This question made Axis smile even wider. "They have none, my Emperor. This is perhaps the most amusing part. They are divided into hundreds of separate nations. They fight wars among themselves constantly. They argue over resources, territory, and ideas. They cannot agree on anything. Some of them do not even believe their own planet is round." The throne room erupted in laughter again. The idea of a species so foolish, so divided, was entertainment to these beings who had conquered 4,000 worlds. Emperor Eth did not laugh. He simply watched the hologram showing the little blue world spinning slowly in the void. "Their planet has resources. Rich deposits of metals and minerals, my Emperor. Fresh water in abundance. And the humans themselves number in the billions. They would make excellent workers for our mining colonies. They are small enough to fit in tight spaces and numerous enough to replace losses easily." The Emperor nodded slowly. "Who wishes to claim this world for the Dominion?" Axis stepped forward immediately. "I request this honor, my Emperor. My 3rd subjugation fleet has been idle for too long. This conquest will be simple, but it will give my crews something to do." Several other admirals in the room shifted uncomfortably. They had wanted to speak, but Axis had been faster. Not that any of them truly wanted this mission. Conquering such a primitive world offered little glory. It was like a master hunter shooting a sleeping animal. The Emperor studied his Grand Admiral for a long moment. "You consider this task beneath you?" It was not a question. Axis hesitated, then spoke truthfully. "I do, my Emperor, but my fleet is the nearest to their system. We can complete this conquest in a single rotation and return before the next council meeting." "A single rotation," the Emperor repeated. "You are confident." "My Emperor, I could conquer this world with 10 ships. I will bring 800 simply because I have them." Axis straightened his back proudly. "The humans will see our fleet and know that resistance is impossible. Their divided leaders will fight each other for the privilege of surrendering first. I expect this to be the easiest conquest in the history of the Dominion." The Emperor was quiet for a long time. The throne room waited in perfect silence. "Go then," Eth finally said. "Bring me this world. Add these humans to our labor forces. Try not to damage too many of them in the process." Axis bowed deeply. "It will be done, my Emperor." He turned and marched from the throne room, his 4 arms swinging at his sides. Already his mind was working on the surrender terms he would offer the humans. He would be generous, he decided. He would let them keep their families together in the labor camps. He would allow them to maintain their primitive religions. Such small mercies cost nothing and made slaves easier to control. Behind him, the hologram of Earth still floated above the throne room floor. The little blue world turned slowly, unaware that 800 warships would soon darken its sky. In his private chambers that night, Grand Admiral Axis stood before a mirror and practiced his victory speech. He had given many such speeches before. He knew exactly what to say to break a species' spirit forever. "People of Earth," he said to his reflection, "your time of independence has ended. You now belong to the Dominion. Resistance will result in the destruction of your cities. Cooperation will be rewarded with mercy. The choice is yours, but the outcome is already decided." He smiled at himself, satisfied with the words. 3 days later, the 3rd subjugation fleet entered. 800 warships, each one capable of burning a continent to ash, vanished from space in a flash of twisted light. Their destination was a small blue world called Earth. Their mission was conquest. They expected to find frightened primitives waiting to be enslaved. They were wrong. The 3rd subjugation fleet emerged from near the edge of the Sol system. 800 warships appeared in perfect formation, their hulls still glowing faintly from the energy of faster-than-light travel. Before them, a small yellow sun burned in the darkness. Around it, 8 planets traced their ancient paths. Grand Admiral Axis stood on the command bridge of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion. The ship was massive, nearly 5 miles long, covered in weapons and armor. It had destroyed entire civilizations by itself. "Report," the Admiral commanded. His sensor officer, a young named Os, studied his screens carefully. "The system matches our probe data, Admiral. 8 planets. The 3rd one is the human. I am detecting their primitive satellites and stations in orbit around it." "Any ships?" "A few small craft near the 4th planet. Research vessels, most likely. Nothing that could threaten us." Axis nodded with satisfaction. Everything was exactly as expected. The humans were blind and helpless, just as the probes had reported. "Set course for the 3rd planet," he ordered. "Standard approach speed, let them see us coming." The fleet began to move, 800 ships gliding through space like predators approaching prey. Axis saw no reason to hurry. Fear was a weapon, and he intended to use it. By the time they reached Earth, the humans would have days to watch death approaching. Days to panic. Days to realize how small and weak they truly were. The fleet passed the outermost planets without incident. Cold worlds of ice and gas, empty and useless. The humans had sent probes to these places, the Admiral knew. Tiny robots that took years to arrive and sent back simple pictures. Primitive. As they approached the 5th planet, a massive ball of swirling storms, something changed. Os frowned at his screens. "Admiral, I am detecting something unusual." "Explain." "Communication signals, sir. Organized transmissions on multiple frequencies." The young officer's frown deepened. "They are encrypted, heavily encrypted." Axis turned to look at him. "The humans have encrypted communications." "It appears so, Admiral, and the encryption is strange. Our systems cannot break it." For a moment, something cold touched the Admiral's heart, but he pushed the feeling away quickly. Encryption was not a weapon. The humans could send all the secret messages they wanted. It would not stop 800 warships. "Ignore it," he commanded. "Continue on course." The fleet moved past the giant planet and its many moons. As they did, Os spoke again, his voice slightly less confident than before. "Admiral, the humans detected us." "Of course they did. We are not hiding." "No, sir. I mean they detected us the moment we exited, at the edge of the system." The officer looked up from his screens. "That is nearly 5 billion kilometers away. Our own sensors cannot reach that far with such accuracy." Axis felt the cold touch again. He ignored it again. "They probably detected the energy signature of our exit. It is a large release of energy. Not surprising. Yes, Admiral, that must be it. But Os did not sound convinced, and Axis noticed that several other bridge officers were exchanging glances. He could not allow doubt to spread through his crew. "The humans have eyes," he announced loudly. "That is all. Good eyes, perhaps, but eyes cannot stop weapons. Continue on course." The fleet moved deeper into the system. They passed the fourth planet, a small red world with a thin atmosphere. The human research vessels there went silent as the warships flew by, hiding, running, exactly what prey was supposed to do. Then they reached the asteroid belt. It was here that Os made his third report, and this time his voice was clearly nervous. "Admiral, there is a station ahead, a human station." "Show me." The main displayed a structure floating among the asteroids. It was large, much larger than the Admiral had expected. Strange shapes extended from its central body. The design was unlike anything in the database. "I cannot scan it properly," Os admitted. "Something is blocking our sensors. I can see the outside, but I cannot see inside." Axis stared at the station. His probes had not mentioned this structure. Either it was new or the probes had missed it. "How is that possible?" he demanded. "Our sensors can scan through solid rock. How can they not scan a human station?" "I do not know, Admiral." The cold feeling was stronger now. Axis pushed it down with anger. "We are wasting time. Ignore the station. Continue to Earth." The fleet left the asteroid belt behind and approached Mars, the fourth planet from the Sun. They were close now. Earth was visible ahead, a blue marble hanging in the darkness. That was when the transmission arrived. "Vessels, this is Earth Defense Command." The voice was calm and clear, translated perfectly through the fleet's communication systems. Axis felt his four hands tighten into fists. "You have entered sovereign human space without authorization. Please state your intentions and prepare for customs inspection before proceeding further." Silence filled the bridge. Then Axis began to laugh. He laughed so hard that he had to hold the railing to keep his balance. He laughed until his sides hurt. Around him, the bridge crew joined in, relieved to break the tension that had been building. "Customs inspection," the Admiral wheezed. "They want to inspect us, 800 warships, and they want to check our cargo." The laughter continued for a long time. When it finally stopped, Axis wiped his eyes and stood straight. "Do not respond. Continue on course. We will teach these humans what happens to those who waste the Dominion's time." The fleet moved forward, ignoring the transmission completely. On the Earth grew larger and larger. The blue oceans sparkled in the sunlight. The white clouds drifted peacefully across the continents. Somewhere in the darkness between the fleet and the planet, something began to move. Something vast, something silent, something that had been waiting for a very long time. Oz saw it first on his screens, just a flicker, just a shadow. He opened his mouth to report it. Then it was gone, and he convinced himself he had imagined it. He had not imagined it. And in exactly 17 minutes, Grand Admiral Axis would learn the truth about humanity. It would be the worst 17 minutes of his life. The third subjugation fleet entered Earth's orbital space in perfect formation. 800 warships arranged themselves in a pattern designed to terrify. From the surface of the planet below, the ships would look like dark stars spreading across the sky. Grand Admiral Axis stood at the center of his bridge, arms folded behind his back, a smile on his gray face. This was the moment he had been waiting for, the moment of surrender. "Open a broadcast channel," he ordered. "All frequencies. I want every human on that planet to hear my words." His communication officer worked the controls. "Channel open, Admiral." Axis took a deep breath. He had practiced this speech many times. He knew exactly how to break a species' spirit. "People of Earth," he began. "I am Grand Admiral Axis of the Dominion. Your world now belongs to—" The alarm cut him off. It was a sound no one on the bridge had ever heard before. A high, screaming warning that made everyone freeze in place. "What is that?" Axis demanded. Oz was staring at his screens with wide eyes. His hands were shaking. "Admiral, the stations are—" "Speak clearly." "They are changing, sir." The main shifted to show Earth's orbital space. What they had identified as primitive communication satellites were moving. Not drifting, moving with purpose and precision. They were repositioning themselves into new formations. And they were unfolding. Axis watched in horror as the small, simple structures opened like flowers blooming in fast motion. From inside each one, weapons emerged. Weapons unlike anything in the database. Weapons that glowed with energy his sensors could not identify. "That is not possible," he whispered. It got worse. The orbital stations, the ones they had dismissed as research platforms, were also transforming. Massive panels slid aside to reveal hangar bays. Hull sections retracted to expose cannon arrays that stretched for kilometers. Then the ships began to launch. They rose from the planet's surface in waves. Thousands of them. They poured out of hidden bases on the moon. They emerged from stations on Mars that the fleet had passed without noticing. They from empty space where nothing had been visible moments before. Human ships, but not the crude rockets the probes had documented. These were something else entirely. Sleek and angular, covered in weapons, moving with a speed and grace that should have been impossible. "How many?" Axis managed to ask. Oz could barely speak. "I have counted over 12,000 ships, Admiral, and more are still appearing." The cold feeling that Axis had been ignoring for days now became a frozen hand gripping his heart. The humans had not just matched his fleet. They had dwarfed it. "This cannot be real," said one of his officers. "The probes showed us their technology. They could barely reach their own moon. This is not possible." But it was real, and as Axis stared at the understanding began to dawn in his mind. The primitive rockets, the divided nations, the petty wars, the species that could not even agree on the shape of their own planet. All of it, every single thing the probes had reported. It was a mask. The humans had known they were being watched, and they had shown the watchers exactly what they wanted them to see. The second transmission arrived, the same calm voice as before. "Vessel, this is Earth Defense Command. You have entered sovereign human space with hostile intent. Your weapons are charged and aimed at our planet. You have ignored our requests for communication." Axis listened in silence, his forearms hanging limp at his sides. "You have 10 seconds to power down your weapons and surrender your fleet. This is your only warning. If you fire upon Earth or any human vessel, we will respond with overwhelming force. Your countdown begins now." The bridge was silent except for the sound of breathing. "Admiral," Oz said quietly, "what do we do?" Axis looked at the thousands of human ships surrounding his fleet, at the weapons platforms that had been hidden in plain sight, at the trap he had walked into with all the pride and blindness of a fool. He thought about surrendering. A wise commander would have surrendered. But Axis was not wise. He was proud. He was angry. And he could not accept that a species his people had dismissed as primitive insects had tricked him so completely. "Impossible," he growled. "This is impossible. It must be a bluff, holograms, tricks. They cannot be this advanced." "Admiral, I do not think." "They are trying to frighten us," Axis shouted. "We are the Dominion. We have conquered 4,000 worlds. We do not surrender to insects who hide behind illusions." He pointed at them with a shaking hand. "All ships, open fire, target the planet. Show these humans what real power looks like." The bridge officers hesitated. "Now," Axis screamed. 800 warships opened fire at once. Plasma cannons, particle beams, nuclear missiles. Enough firepower to sterilize a continent. The weapons streaked toward Earth in a wave of destruction. None of them arrived. The human ships moved in perfect coordination. Energy shields appeared from nothing, walls of shimmering light that caught the weapons and absorbed them completely. Missiles vanished into portals that opened and closed in the blink of an eye. Plasma bolts were redirected back toward empty space. Not a single shot touched Earth. "Return fire," the calm human voice said. Axis had exactly enough time to realize that he had made the worst mistake of his life. Then the human weapons activated, and the universe turned white. The battle lasted 11 seconds. In those 11 seconds, Grand Admiral Axis watched his entire fleet die. The human weapons did not work like anything they had ever seen. There were no explosions, no fire, no debris. Ships simply stopped existing. One moment a massive warship would be there, firing its weapons, trying to maneuver. The next moment it would be gone, not destroyed. Gone, converted into atoms by energy that passed through shields like they were not there. The Eternal Dominion shook as ships died around it. Axis gripped the railing of his command bridge, watching with horror. 700 ships vanished in the first 3 seconds. The rest tried to flee. They could not flee. Human vessels surrounded them completely. There was nowhere to go. The ships that turned to run were eliminated just as quickly as those that stood and fought. Their weapons were useless. Their shields were useless. Their speed was useless. Everything the Dominion had built, everything they had believed made them invincible, meant nothing here. At the 8-second mark, only 50 ships remained. At the 10-second mark, only 10. At 11 seconds, only 1. The Eternal Dominion. Axis waited for death, but it did not come. The human weapons stopped firing. The flagship hung alone in space, surrounded by enemies, the last survivor of a fleet that had numbered 800. "Why?" Oz whispered. "Why did they spare us?" The answer came quickly. The ship lurched as something grabbed it. Invisible forces held the Eternal Dominion in place, unable to move, unable to flee. Axis watched his engineers try desperately to activate the engines, but the ship would not respond. "They are holding us," someone said. "I do not understand the technology. It should not be possible." Nothing should have been possible, but it was happening anyway. Human ships approached the flagship. They were smaller than vessels, but they moved with frightening precision. One of them attached itself to the Eternal Dominion's hull. A moment later, the sound of cutting echoed through the corridors. They were boarding. "All security teams to the breach point," Axis commanded. "Stop them, do not let them take my ship." But even as he gave the order, he knew it was hopeless. If human weapons could destroy 800 warships in 11 seconds, what chance did his guards have? The answer was none. Reports flooded the bridge as human soldiers moved through the ship. They wore armor that made them giants, towering over the guards who tried to stop them. They moved through corridors and rooms with terrible efficiency. They did not kill unless they had to, but when they did, the deaths were instant and clean. Soldiers threw down their weapons and surrendered. There was no shame in it. Fighting was pointless. Everyone could see that now. Within 20 minutes, the humans controlled the entire ship. Within 30 minutes, they reached the bridge. The doors opened, and human soldiers stepped through. Their armor was dark gray and covered their entire bodies. Axis could not see their faces behind their helmets. He could only see his own reflection staring back at him. "Grand Admiral Axis," one of the soldiers said through a speaker in the helmet, "you will come with us." Axis considered fighting. He had 4 arms and centuries of combat training. But he looked at the weapons the humans carried, weapons that had destroyed his fleet in seconds, and he knew that fighting would only mean death. He nodded slowly and walked forward. The soldiers led him through his own ship. Everywhere he looked, he saw his crew being gathered into groups, their weapons taken, their hands raised in surrender. None of them looked at him. They were too ashamed. Finally, they brought him to his own command bridge. More humans waited there. Most were soldiers, but one was different. She was a woman, small and thin, wearing a simple uniform instead of armor. Her hair was dark and cut short. Her eyes were brown and calm. She looked at Axis the way a scientist might look at an interesting insect. She was not afraid of him, not even slightly. "Grand Admiral," she said. Her voice was the same one that had delivered the warnings, the same one that had asked for customs inspection. "I am Commander Sarah of Earth Defense Command. Your fleet has been neutralized." Axis found his voice. "Neutralized? You mean destroyed? 800 ships, thousands of my people." "Your ships are destroyed," agreed. "But we captured escape pods where possible. Approximately 60% of your crews survived. They will be treated humanely." The Admiral stared at her. "You saved them, why?" "Because we are not monsters, Admiral. We do not kill when we do not have to." She tilted her head slightly. "Unlike your Dominion, which has enslaved 4,000 worlds and killed billions who resisted." Axis had no answer for that. It was true. The Dominion had never shown mercy to anyone. "You have questions," said. It was not a question. "How?" The word came out as a croak. "Our probes studied you for 30 cycles. You were primitive. You had not even left your moon in decades. Your people fought wars over patches of dirt. How is this possible?" Commander smiled. It was not a cruel smile. It was the smile of someone revealing a secret they had kept for a very long time. "Admiral, we left our moon 60 years ago because we got bored of it. We had already seen everything there was to see, so we went further. She stepped closer to him. We have been to places your empire has not dreamed of. We have touched the edge of the galaxy. We have looked into the hearts of black holes. We have developed technologies your scientists would call magic. Then why, Axis demanded, why pretend to be weak, why hide? Because we were watching you, said simply. We knew the galaxy was full of empires like yours, conquerors, slavers. We decided to let you think we were harmless while we prepared for the day you would come. She gestured at which showed the human fleet surrounding the captured flagship. You came, we were ready. Axis looked at the thousands of ships outside, at the weapons that had ended his fleet in seconds, at the small human woman who had orchestrated the greatest military defeat in Dominion history. What happens now? He asked quietly. Commander's smile faded. Now, Admiral, we talk about the future, your future, the Dominion's future, and the future of the 4,000 worlds your empire has enslaved. She turned and walked toward the door. Bring him, we have much to discuss. The soldiers took Axis by the arms and led him away. Behind them, Earth turned slowly in the darkness, blue and green and beautiful. And completely unharmed, the Eternal Dominion emerged from alone. It appeared in the sky above the throne world, a single ship where 800 had departed just weeks before. Its hull was unmarked. Its weapons were cold. It drifted in silence toward the planet below. Within minutes, every sensor on the throne world was pointed at the returning flagship. Within hours, Emperor Ed the Undying had summoned his full council to the throne room. Within a day, the entire Dominion knew that something terrible had happened. Grand Admiral Axis walked through the palace gates as a changed being. His uniform was clean and pressed. His medals still hung on his chest, but his eyes were empty and his shoulders were bent like those of an old man carrying a heavy weight. The throne room fell silent as he entered. Thousands of generals, admirals, and advisors watched him walk the long path to the Emperor's throne. No one spoke. No one moved. They all knew just by looking at him that the news was bad. Axis stopped before the throne and fell to his knees. My Emperor, he said, his voice was hollow. I have failed you. Emperor Eth leaned forward. His ancient eyes studied the broken admiral before him. Where is your fleet? Destroyed, my Emperor. A gasp ran through the throne room. 800 ships, the pride of the Dominion, gone. Destroyed by whom? The Emperor demanded. Who could destroy 800 warships? Axis raised his head. The humans, my Emperor. Silence, complete and total silence. Then the Emperor began to laugh. It was a cold, angry sound. The humans, the primitives who fight with metal projectiles, the insects who cannot leave their own moon, you expect me to believe that they destroyed my fleet. I do not expect you to believe it, my Emperor. I will show you. Axis raised his hand, and the throne room's holographic systems activated. But instead of the images he commanded, something else appeared. A human woman, Commander Sarah. She stood in the center of the throne room as if she were really there, looking directly at the Emperor. My name is Commander Sarah of Earth Defense Command, she said. This message is being broadcast to every system in the Dominion, every world, every station, every ship. Everyone is hearing these words. The Emperor's laughter died in his throat. 16 days ago, you sent a fleet to conquer our world. 800 warships arrived in our system with orders to enslave our people. They were given the opportunity to surrender. They refused. They opened fire on our planet. Pause to let the words sink in. The battle lasted 11 seconds. Your entire fleet was destroyed. We captured the flagship and treated the surviving crew members with dignity and respect, more than your empire has ever shown to the species you have conquered. Murmurs spread through the throne room. Advisors and generals exchanged frightened glances. We are sending your admiral home with a message, not a threat, a statement of fact. Earth is not a colony to be claimed. Humanity is not a species to be enslaved. We have watched your empire expand for centuries. We have seen how you treat those weaker than yourselves. We have prepared. The hologram showed images now. Images of the battle. 800 ships vanishing in seconds. Human weapons erasing them from existence. The Eternal Dominion captured and held like a toy in a child's hand. We are not your enemies, continued. We do not want war, but we will not allow slavery to continue. We will not allow conquered species to suffer under your rule. Emperor Eth was gripping his throne so tightly that the ancient bone was cracking under his fingers. Humanity makes 3 demands. First, the immediate release of all enslaved species on all Dominion worlds. Every slave must be freed. Every labor camp must be opened. Second, the complete dissolution of your subjugation fleets. You will not conquer any more worlds. Third, the formation of a new interstellar council where all species have an equal voice, including those you have conquered. The hologram shifted again. Now it showed Earth, beautiful and blue, surrounded by thousands of human ships. If you agree to these terms, we will share our knowledge with you, our medicine, our technology, our understanding of the universe. We will help you become something better than you are. His expression hardened. If you refuse or if you send another fleet to Earth, we will come to you. We will not wait for you to arrive at our doorstep. We will bring the war to your throne world, and we will not be merciful twice. The hologram flickered and vanished, leaving the throne room in silence. Emperor Eth sat frozen on his throne. For the first time in his immortal life, he did not know what to do. He had ruled for 10,000 years. He had conquered countless worlds. He had believed that nothing in the galaxy could challenge him. He had been wrong. "This is a trick," one of his advisors said weakly. "It must be. No species could be this powerful and remain hidden." "It is not a trick," Axis replied. "I saw it with my own eyes. I felt it when they boarded my ship. They could have killed us all in seconds. They chose not to." "What do we do?" another advisor asked. No one had an answer. But across the Dominion, in places the throne room could not see, something was already happening. On mining worlds where slaves worked in endless darkness, the message played on stolen screens. Beings who had been broken by centuries of cruelty heard the words and dared to hope. On prison planets where rebels were sent to die, the message spread like fire. Names were whispered in the night: Earth, humanity, freedom. On Conquered, where entire species had forgotten what independence felt like, the message arrived like the first light of dawn after an endless night. The Dominion had seemed invincible, eternal, unbreakable. But now everyone knew the truth. Somewhere in the galaxy there was a species that had stood against the Dominion and won. A species that demanded freedom for all, a species that was not afraid. In chains on 1,000 worlds, the enslaved began to stir. They looked up at the stars and knew that somewhere out there, allies were waiting. The humans had never been primitive. They had never been weak. They had never been alone. And now, for the first time in 10,000 years, the galaxy had hope. On the blue world called Earth, Commander Sarah stood at a window and looked up at the stars. The message had been sent. The first move had been made. Whatever came next, humanity would face it together. She smiled slightly and whispered to the darkness, "Your move."